Hello, everybody. This is Corporal Kindel returning to Dominions 5. I am going to be starting a brand new playlist coming back from a loss as Niflheim on Impossible versus 15 AI. I want payback. So this time I'm going to be taking a different nation. I am going to be taking the nation of Pangea. So we're going to be looking forward to seeing those of you that want to see Pangea. That's what you're going to get. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to large, from Winowise to normal screen, which is Alt-Enter. And we are going to create a new world. So we're going to go to Create World. I'm going to use the same settings that I did last time. For new people, this is the first screen that you get to. It's you choose the world. I'm going to try to do as much tutorial as I did in the last episode. The first 6-ish episodes of the Niflheim, I really went in depth on a lot of tutorial stuff. This episode, I'm going to try to skim through them a little quicker because it's mostly going to be on the game. Although I will add some tutorials, mainly some of the stuff that I didn't get to last episode, which was more into the magic. The last game I didn't really get to create a super combatant, for several reasons, which I addressed in the conclusions of the last episode. In general, I ran out of cash. I didn't have enough. I got overwhelmed. Didn't have enough cash to buy a whole lot of researchers to get my researchers up to the point where I could create a super combatant in a nutshell. I'm gonna try to overcome that or avoid that situation this game by first of all not taking big hits on the scales, which I'll get to in a minute. So let's generate the map first. It's going to be a random map, which means the computer just generates a random map to the setting. So your options are small, medium, large, enormous. Again, these settings are really situational. I mean, there are 15 provinces per player, but if you have 2 players, that's 30, say, versus 10 players is 150. So there's a big difference here. This is really kind of misleading. I wouldn't really call that medium. I mean, if you have 15 players, that's not medium. I mean, I would call that large. 2, I would call small. It really depends on the number of players. I'm going to be going 15 players on 15 maps. So that's 15 times 15 is 225 plus the human player adds another 15. So it's really 240 province-sized map is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to enable all the wraparounds here. Few water, normal water. It's going to be normal metal. I'm going to enable all the and importantly the east, west, and north-south wraparounds will create a spherical world, which I like, which is a realistic and natural world. I hate corners. So when the game has these options, I turn them on. So we're going to we're going to do that because that's how I like it. I'm going to call this game is going to be Shift RKK-4. My last game was 3, so we're going to go with 4. This is your save game. Every time you hit quit and save, it's going to keep overwriting this file. That's how it works in this game. So we're going to click OK, and I'm going to take Early Ages, a default. Very briefly, it's like Early Ages, more magic. It's, comparable to like Stone Age, Bronze Age, maybe very early Iron Age if you're going comparing it to Earth. Middle Ages is really like early to Middle Ages, say from like the end of Rome up to the Viking Age, around 900 AD roughly. And Late Age, I would really classify more as like the Renaissance era, plate armor, etc., etc. So I'm going to be taking the Early Ages. Okay, and now the player opponents. I'm going to be normally I play 30 when I play myself, but I'm going to be taking 15 just for the to cut down on how I want to play many opponents for important reasons. They're all going to be impossible. I like to be challenged playing a game. I don't play easy at all. My initial my initial settings are always, when I first pick up a game, it's always the hardest setting, and I may reduce that one level depending on the game. I have a lot of experience playing this particular game, at least in Dom 3 and 4, and I had one playlist in 5, so I'm going to be going at 15 opponents to 30 just so that it doesn't turn into a 200 episode 100 episode playlist, maybe just 50 episodes if I win. Of course, the last one took me 27 before I lost. I actually made it to year 6. So I'm going to be playing human. I'm going to set 15 opponents. They're all going to be set to impossible, which is the most difficult. Random, impossible, AI. I don't want to know who I'm playing, so they're random. I'm going to put up 15 opponents. We got one. Oh, for God's sake. I keep doing that. Why do I keep doing that? I clicked the wrong button. Random. Adding new player. Computer player, switch him over to impossible. For some reason, I keep messing that up. Okay, it's on impossible AI, the first guy. The first one we're going to add. That's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Okay, we officially added 15. And one human. 15 on impossible. I'm not playing a disciples game, which is you can set up your opponents or as teams or yourself as teams. This is actually not the most difficult setting. I mean, as far as impossible, that's the highest level of difficulty. But you could set, for example, 30 impossible where everybody's fighting each other. Or if you take a disciples game, you could set a bunch of allies. Let's say I'd set all these guys on allied. If I set this on a disciples game and all 15 of these impossible, it would be 15 to 1. So right now it's like each one of these is 1 versus 15. But if I grouped all these together in a disciple game, it would be 15 to 1. That would be truly horrendously difficult, even in my opinion. So the most difficult game that you can actually set is a 30 player. That's the max number of guys that you can add in this game is 30. And allying them all. So imagine having 30 guys against you, all of them allied. I don't see how you could possibly even win that. It would be horrendously difficult. Because all these opponents in that situation would be close to a throne of ascension. And they would, really, all they have to do is take the thrones and they would win because they're all allied. So there's my setting. That's how I'm going to set it right now. And we're setting in, I'm a human. Oh, I am going to change my sign. I'm going to be playing not Niflheim, Pangea, the Age of Revelry. So we're going Pangea. Last game I played Niflheim, and I lost. So I'm looking for payback with Pangea. It's actually a side that I haven't played yet. So I'm going to be playing them. So we're going to click OK, and it's going to go to the next screen. This is just an overview of all your units. We'll go do a quick overview of the units. These ones at the top are leaders, units, and your site that's in your province. So I'm starting with this magic site, which generates 6. And it generates a special unit that only generates a special unit for your side. If they capture it, they don't get the unit, but they do get the gems. So we got a bunch of different units here. They have a lot of centaurs, which is really cool. I like these centaurs. So let's look at their units. So I need to have an idea of what my armies are going to be like. They're going to be composed of these things. We'll start with the units. We start with the Harpy, which is a flying unit. As you can see here, it's stealthy. So that means you can actually move it. In stealthy, in this game, you can infiltrate. It's indicated by stealthy. The 40 down there at the bottom indicates that's the number of points you can have to have a 50% chance of success, I believe is how it works. So, for example, if there are 40 enemy points worth of patrolling, you got a 50% chance of not getting seen or discovered. It's got forest survival, so it can move through forest without getting reduced. And it's got recuperation, which is a cool ability. It provides, you can right-click on these things, and they get, it gives you the explanation. Some of these explanations are good, others are not very detailed. In a nutshell, you get afflictions in this game. There's chances of getting afflictions, losing an arm, an eye, a gaping chest wound. Mostly they happen in battle. I'll talk about them, but this with recuperation, you can eliminate that. It's a very good, very, very good thing. It's one of the things I like about this side. I really like recuperate. I hate those wounds, those affliction type wounds. They're really, really bad. Okay, so let's go a little bit into these stats. I went into a great deal in the other episode, so I'm going to try to go a little quicker through it. Gold is one of the costs when you get the items. Gold, resource, and recruitment points. There are 3 costs to buy the unit. They basically take gold, resources, and a certain amount of recruitment points from the province. Okay? There are 2 movement abilities, or map move, and combat speed. Map move is on the strategic map. They got 30, you can look at it as 32 movement points. Each province costs a certain amount of movement points, which range from, I think, it's broken down into, it's weird in this game, it's broken it down into 2 halves. So there's a half to move into a province and half to move out. For example, open ground or plains is 6, so it costs 6 to enter and 6 to leave. So that's 12. 12, 24. So we can, I believe for flying units, it may be a little bit different. The cost to fly over, I'm not sure. The cost of terrain might be different, but that's for land units. Exactly what the movement cost is for flying units, I'm not 100% sure at this point. I'm sure that they can fly over stuff. And combat speed is that's your speed on the map. It's got 4, which is reasonably good. The map, on the tactical map, I should say, the tactical map is basically a chess-like grid. I think it costs 2 to move horizontally and vertically, and to go diagonally, it's 3. I believe that's the way it works in combat speed. Okay, a very important thing in this game is encumbrance and fatigue. Encumbrance. So encumbrance happens on the battle map. These are very, very important. This is how much it generates each turn, each tactical turn on a battle, about 3, and it adds to fatigue. But I should qualify that by saying it's each turn on the battle map once you're in contact with the enemy. While you're moving, you don't generate fatigue, but once you move adjacent to an enemy unit and attack, you start generating fatigue. And then fatigue is equal to the encumbrance, accumulation of encumbrance. So the first turn he moves into contact, it's 3. The second turn, it's 3 added to 3, which is 6. The third turn, 3 added to 6 is 9. The fourth turn, 3 added to 9 is 12. So it has so encumbrance adds to fatigue. There's a way to reduce fatigue. It's called reinvigoration. Reinvigoration subtracts from fatigue. You can get reinvigoration by items, give reinvigoration, spells, give reinvigoration. There are a whole lot of items that can do that, and spells, some special abilities. Also, there's a default, you could call it reinvigoration of 1. Every unit, I think, can remove 1 a turn, which is not good. So you can see your encumbrance is always going to be higher than the base of 1, unless you're not attacking. You can see that the encumbrance is going to keep longer battles. You're going to generate huge amounts of fatigue. The negative point of fatigue is that it's going to subtract from your attack skill and your defense skill. And it subtracts from your attack skill at the rate of 1 for 10 and your defense at the rate of 1 for 20. For example, if you had 60 fatigue, you're going to subtract from your attack 6, because it's 1 for 10. 1 for 60 is 6 multiples of 10, so that's minus 6. Conversely, from your defense skill, it subtracts 1 for 20. So 60 is going to subtract 3 from your defense skill, because it's 3 multiples of 20. 3 times 20 is 60. So that's how fatigue is very important. Also, if your fatigue gets up to 100, you pass out. If you get to 200, you start taking damage instead of fatigue. So if you get more damage, more fatigue over 200 accumulates as damage. I think it might be fatigue and damage. I'm not 100% sure about that. So you can see this is incredibly important in this game. Fatigue. There are a whole lot of things. In the tactical battles, it's probably the most essential element. Spells cost amount of fatigue. When a caster casts a spell, there are some spells that actually cost 100 fatigue to cast. They are unbelievably expensive. Most of them are probably 10 to 20, something in there, and they range in between. Age. Basically, age is the main thing to look at is if you're getting close to your max age. If you exceed your max age, you become old age. Old age is bad. There are random chances of getting an affliction at old age. I'm sure it's some small amount, but if it generates every turn. Eventually, you're just going to get a affliction, even if it's 2%. I mean, what in 100 turns, you should get 2 afflictions at 2%, right? So in 50 turns, the odds are you'll get 1. If it's 2%, I'm not 100% sure what the percentage is. I know that it's tied with the growth rate scale. So you have a better growth rate, you'll reduce that somewhat. XP, experience points. Okay, every time you get experience points for, I think the base rate is just 1 a turn. If you don't do anything, you generate 1 a turn. If you're in combat and kill units, you get experience points for killing units and maybe for hitting too. I'm not 100% sure exactly how much you get for killing in combat, but you do get some. I'm fairly sure you get 1 a turn at default. So in time, you get it more experience. You start getting these stars down here, these experience stars, which are very good. Once you get experience stars, they start adding to your ability. You may get one that adds to your defense and attack, I think, for each star. I'm not 100% sure of how that works, but that's what happens. So what are we left with? Strength. Okay, strength, attack, default, defense, and protection. I'll explain in a nutshell how that works. So in this game, there's a dice roll in the background when you're in combat. Just like any game, you swing at a guy. So it's a 2-step process. It's a 2-hit and then a effect system. I play a game called Advanced Squad Leader. In that game, you fire tanks and a direct fire at another tank. For example, you have a 2-hit and a 2-kill roll. This is similar the way it works, a 2-hit and an effect. So the first step when a guy swings in melee combat is to see if he hits. So how that works is they compare the attack skill to the defense skill. But there are modifiers. It's the attack skill minus fatigue that I just mentioned, and plus your weapon. Every weapon has a weapon value attack to it. For example, some of the swords are 2, so that'll add 2 to your attack skill. If this guy had a sword or something, well, he only has claws, but this is an army unit. It doesn't have slots. The leaders will have slots which you can add items to it. This guy doesn't. So his attack skill is locked at 8, which is not very good, and his defense skill is 10. So if he was attacking something, let's say he was trying to strike another unit, he would roll 2 dice. Let me make a side note here. The dice roll in this game, the dice system is called a DRN, a Dominion's Random Number System. They roll 2 6-sided dice, and it's an open-ended roll. So that means if you roll 6s, they roll again. For example, let's say I rolled boxcars, which is 2 6s. Then what happens are the 2 6s will subtract from 1, and you would roll each roll again. So I'm rolling 2 6s. They become 2 5s. Because each one is -1, -1. So -1 times 2 is -2. 2 6s become 12. 12 minus 2 is 10. And then I roll the 2 dice again. Say I rolled a 3 and a 4. That's 7. Okay, so it would be 10 plus 7 is 17. And that's how it works, very simply. Every time you roll attack and defense, they're rolling. So the attacker rolls and the defender rolls. Attacker subtracts his fatigue, adds his weapon ability. The defender rolls, adds his defense value, and subtracts his fatigue. And then if the attacker is higher, he hits. So that's how it works. So think of attack versus defense as thrust and parry. attack, your thrusting, defense is like parry, dodge, whatever you want to call it. It's not protection, it's not armor. It's just your dodge ability, more or less. So then if he successfully hits, then you compare to protection. One other thing they'd add to the attack and defense roll. If he has a shield, there's a shield parry number. So, for example, if he has a shield parry number of 4, if he's rolling an attack versus defense, if he rolls higher than the defense plus the parry number, that roll, the sum of all those numbers that I just said, attack plus fatigue plus weapon versus defense plus fatigue plus parry. If it's higher than all of those, he hits around the shield and the shield has no effect. However, if he's lower than the parry number but higher than the defense roll, he actually hits the shield. So you add the shield, whatever the shield protection is, to the protection. So the higher the parry number, the greater chance that he'll hit the shield. Hit the shield, basically. And then, so assume he hits, the next step is to go to the effect. So now the effect, you compare the strength plus a dice roll. Again, it's the strength plus the Dominion's dice roll versus protection plus a dice roll. And if he hits the shield, you add the shield protection. And that's how it works. If the attack roll is higher than that, then the result is damage. So, for example, if he rolled a 17, say I rolled the boxcars and then a 3, 4, 17. 17 plus 8 is 25. If the guy rolled, say he was attacking a guy that had protection 10, plus, and the guy rolled let's say he rolled a 9, a 5 and a 4 is 9. 9 plus 10 is 19. And I rolled 25. 17 plus 8 is 25. 25 minus 19 is 6, right? That's 6. So then 6 is added to his damage, his hit points, is reduced from his hit points. So if he had 10 hit points, I would reduce it down to 4. And this is where the another thing I want to add to the aside, this is where afflictions come in. Say, using that example, 6, I reduced him 6 versus 10, that's 60%. So he now has a 60% chance of getting an affliction, which is almost, well, I'm not going to say guaranteed, but it's better than half that he will get some kind of affliction. And affliction is something like lost an eye, lost a limb, open gaping chest wound, lost a leg, something horrible. The hit affliction is dependent on where you hit. There's another dice. If you hit a guy, successfully hit, there's a chance of hitting a head versus the torso versus the arm versus the leg. I think that the head hit chances, it may be 10%, the arms might be 20%, legs may be 20%, and maybe 50% on the torso. I think that's what it is, but don't quote me on it. So if you hit, then it also determines a location. So if you do enough damage, you'll hit that location for purposes of determining if there's affliction. If there's no affliction, it doesn't really matter. It just reduces your hit points. And of course, those afflictions are bad. If you lose an arm, what it'll do is you only have one arm slot on a leader instead of 2, so you won't be able to carry a shield. Or, well, you can carry a shield and no weapon, or a weapon and no shield, or something like that. And then they reduce from your attack, and they may add more encumbrance. They're all bad. Every one of those afflictions is horribly, horribly bad. Probably one of the worst is disease. Disease isn't something that happens in battle, but there are random sites on the magic sites on the map that can spread disease. And if you get disease, essentially you're just going to die. It increases the chances that you're going to get other inflictions. I mean, the chance of getting other inflictions are much higher. And if you get enough of them, you just flat out die. It's horrible. I hate disease in this game. Spreading disease sites are absolutely horrible. I try to avoid them at all costs. Okay, so what did I miss? Size. Okay, size determines how many units can occupy a square. The chess-like battle board, you could put 6 points of size units. So, for example, this guy is 2. I can put 3 of them in a hex, right? 2 times 3 is 6. 3 of these guys stack in 1 hex. Okay, so that covers that. What am I left with? Magic resistance. Some spells you need a magic resistance to overcome. So it's it works the same way. The dice roll plus the spell. I think it's a dice roll plus the spell a value versus the dice roll plus the magic resistance. If it's higher, if the spell attack roll is higher than the magic resistance roll, then the spell can affect the person. Some spells don't really have or aren't affected by magic, like explosion spells. I don't think they are affected by magic resistance. Or it might be that magic resistance affects it, but it only does half damage or something. I'm not 100% sure. But in a nutshell, that's how magic resistance, it's important. And lastly is morale. Morale is taken into account in this game. Very all-encompassing game. Squads can actually rout if they break. And there's a whole lot of things that can affect morale. All these units, armies are organized into squads. If the squad takes enough damage, they start taking morale checks. If all of your leaders are killed in a battle, your squads will automatically rout they will all break regardless of morale. If they take enough damage, the squad takes enough damage. It's damage as a whole. I think, gosh, I will have to, right offhand, I can't remember. I want to say 75%, or maybe at every 10% or 20%. I think if it gets 20% chance, if the squad takes 20% damage, then it takes a morale check. If it takes 30, it may be something like another morale check with a +1 or something. I don't know. I'll look at that up again just to be 100% sure. So that covers everything really in a nutshell. Okay, that was just for other people that haven't watched my other video, which I went in depth. I just wanted to get that in a nutshell so you know what these stats are. So those are the stats. So you should have an idea of what these stats are. So let's exit from that. This unit they're pretty low. This is not a good unit, frankly. It's not. If you throw enough at them, they're going to hit. Imagine, like I said, the Dominion's random roll. Well, how many 6s are you going to roll in a... Well, the total combination is 6 times 6 is 36. 36 combinations. So look at the probabilities. How many are those going to be 6? Under normal probabilities, 12, right? 6 on one die, 6 on the other die. So that's pretty good. That's a very good chance of getting a 6. Every 6 rolls, every 6 dice rolls should, under normal probabilities, you should get 1. If you're rolling 36 times, you should get 6. Let me take that back, a 6 out of them. 6 out of 36, so that's 1 6. Out of those 36 rolls, 6 of them will have a 6, and you get to re-roll. That's how that works. So that gives you an idea of the percentages. If I have 36 of these guys and then, rolling, I'm going to get 6 of them. 6 of these guys are going to roll a 6 and get a bigger than normal roll, whether it's on attack or on their strength versus protection. So that's the way to look at it. The more of these guys you have piled, the more likely you're going to get some luck. 6s in there. Probabilities. Okay, so we determined this guy's not very good, but he has one really strong thing. He can fly, and he's recuperative. Flying guys can fly over walls. So can ethereal guys. They can go through the walls. And castles. Castles are generally pretty tough to take down. Okay, so that was that guy. Now we got some ground units. What do we got? These guys I was looking at them. They're really not very good either, but they're a little bit better than the other guys. 12 hit points, 11, 10. They got double digits and all these things, so they're not that bad. Oh, one other thing I didn't cover, precision. Precision is used for bows and arrows and magic. I mentioned attack and defense and the other thing. Well, that was for melee, swinging at people. Precision is used for casting spells and for firing bows. So there's a different kind of mechanism taking place when you determine spell hits, whether you fire a fireball at a hex, how accurate that hits. If it hits that hex, precision will determine. If you're firing long range with a bow, whether it hits that target, precision determines it. Also, for every precision above 10, it's doubled. Everything over 10 is doubled. For example, let's say I had a precision of 12. 12 is 2 above 10, so that 2 is doubled to a 4, so it's really a 14. 13 would be 16. If it was a 14 precision, it would really be 18. So that's something good to keep in mind. The more you're above 10, the better your accuracy is going to be. You can look at precision as like a telescopic sight versus an iron sight, kind of. So that's how that. Those are that. Now that is all the stats. Covered all the stats. So this guy, what is this? Causes unrest. So that's good. He can cause still unrest in enemy provinces. And we'll talk about more unrest, the less gold you're going to get, and more chance that there may be a revolt or something like that. Undisciplined, well, that's kind of a bad thing. You can't, if they're undisciplined, they can't group into different formations, and you can't script them on them. In this game, you can script formations like in a line, a box, attack, rear, fire, archers, fire, stuff like that. If they're undisciplined, they can't do any of those things. They're basically a big glob of guys that, doggone hiccups, a glob of guys that just do whatever the computer generates. He's got forest file, moves from forest faster, and he's stealthy. I covered that last time. This guy's a little better. He's 60. So 40 patrol points, he's got a 60% chance of getting by. Unlike the other guy who was 40, this guy's a little bit better at stealthy. His stats are a little bit better. Okay, so that was the satiric sneak, satyr sneak. And what do we have here? Just a satyr. Again, he's got double digits of everything. 9. He doesn't look that much different from the other guy. Protection stinks. All his stats are the same, except he doesn't have sneaking ability. Oh, he does have a stealthy ability. It's lower, though, 40. These guys actually don't look really that good, but they're cheap guys. 9 gold. They're kind of cheap, so I'm going to be using them as a meat shield of guys out front. That's what I want to use them for. And what is that? What do we got here? Satyr Warrior. Okay, so this guy's a little bit better. He's got 14 hit points, and his stats are a little better, and he's 13 gold instead of 9. He is more expensive. Doesn't have a sneak ability, but it's made up for the fact that he's a little higher quality. Defense skill is reason. That's actually pretty good defense skill. 15. He's got more hit points, so I'll be looking at these guys, buy these guys a little bit more. And he's got recuperation, which is nice. A lot of these Pangea guys have recuperation. It's one of their special abilities. Reveler. So what do we got here? Causes unrest like that other guy. Undisciplined again. Recuperation. We talked stealth. What is this? Berserker. Okay, so there's a chance of going berserk in this game. I don't know what the exact probability is. I think when they take a hit, then there's a percentage chance that the guys can go berserk. And what happens when they go berserk? They get an additional, I think it's attack skill. It may be attack skill and strength, but they get a subtract from their defense. So they get an enhanced, and they don't rout. They actually start charging forward. So you get it. On the one hand, you get strength and attack. On the other hand, you're losing defense. The bad point is the bad thing about going berserk that I noticed, if you're losing the battle, they'll die. Because these guys will hang out till the very end and they die. So whether you're winning or losing, really, their life expectancy is tied to whether you're going to win or whether you're winning or losing the battle as a whole. Because they kind of just charge forward, kind of like, a Japanese samurai charge or something. They just kind of die. They'll do some damage, but then they die. That's why I don't really see that as a good ability. One of those things I kind of don't really like, but... Okay, now we get to our really strong units. Okay, we got Centaur. I really like this because these guys are fast. They got forest survival. A lot of these Pangeas guys can move through forest quicker. So forests are our friend to Pangea, and they're recuperative. I really like the recuperation. So these guys got 20 hit points. Notice their gold cost is really high, 25. It's double, almost double what the other guys are. But they got really good stats. Oh, by the way, here's their weapons down here. For example, this guy's got a hoof, so he can attack with his feet or hoofs. And he's got a dagger, a long bow. So he can actually do 3 attacks. A hoof. By the way, one other thing I didn't mention about in the whole melee thing, there are 3 types of weapon types in this game. There's blunt, pierce, slash. So weapons have blunt, pierce, slash. So a blunt damage, for example, what that does is if you get a head hit, I believe it's doubled. So if you actually gets a hoof against a guy's head, this will become a 26. I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Pierce and slash. Gosh, I'm not 100%. I think if a pierce strikes armor, is the armor to get halved? I will post this in the background on white. I think that's how it works, but I'll post it. It's something like if it hits armor, it might be halved. If slash strikes armor, is it, oh God. If it strikes armor, maybe it affects it in a different way. I can't remember right offhand. I will post this in the background, what the blunt, pierce, and slash bonuses are. But they all get bonuses depending on where you hit the guy versus their armor or versus torso leg combination. And this guy also has a bow. It has a range of 45, which is very nice. And the bow is attack 12, and it does 13 damage value. So remember, the damage is compared to protection. The attack is compared to the guy's defensive skill and shield in a way. The shield's parry value. Attack the shield's parry value plus the dodge. So make sure you keep that in mind. Okay, so that's this guy. He's pretty darn good. I will be making much use of these units. One very important concept too about gold. These guys cost an upkeep every turn. The upkeep is equal to this is the gold resources or recruitment points, as I remember. That's the cost to actually buy the unit. Then there's a recurring cost turn after turn to maintain the unit. There's salary. Think of it as a salary. And it's the gold cost divided by 15. So this guy's going to cost a recurring upkeep cost of 25 divided by 15, which equals 1.6. I'm assuming that rounds up to 2. I don't know how fractions are in this game, but I assume that 1.6 is rounded up to 2. So he's going to fight 10 of these guys. They're going to cost me 2 times 10 is 20 every turn, just in recurring gold cost. Okay. Oh, and guys that are sacred are half of that. So instead of 1/15th, they're 1/30th. Very, very important. That's not to be underestimated. That's why I want to recruit as much sacred units as any, because you're getting your bangs for buck. They're cheaper. And also that you have 2 guys in the game that are your pretender and your prophet. Those 2 guys are actually free. They work for free or work for food, as the case may be, and they don't cost any upkeep. There are no gold and no upkeep for your prophet and your pretender. So that's a good, you may want to get a really strong prophet, a guy that's really expensive, because you can save the money by not, it's something that you may want to think about it. And it may not be the primary reason, but so that we basically have an archer here, a centaur archer, and that pretty much, it's a pretty good unit. It's expensive, but it's a good unit. So what do we have here? Centaur ride. Okay, in this game, I believe the difference between a centaur and a centaur ride is one's a male and a female version. So this one has a short bow. It's 35. It's got a little bit less hit points, but I believe some of these other stats are better. I think it had a better defense skill. It might have a better defense skill and precision. 14, 13. Well, let's look at that. Let's look at there's 12, 10, 14, 13. 12, 10, 14, 13 versus 12, 10, 14, 13. So it's got 1 point better in defense and precision, and it's got the same attack skill but 1 less strength. And this one's got a little bit more hit points. It's 25. The other one's probably 25. They're both 25. So you know what? They would probably be using both of those: a long bow, a short bow. Short bow 35 versus the long bow 25, 45. They're both pretty good. So then we got the warriors. Again, there's probably going to be a male and female version. So these guys are obviously these guys are more charge into combat melee guys. They got spear, hooves, and javelin. Oh, good. They actually have javelins. Cool. Javelin is a range 12. So it actually has a couple of... I know that the Niflheim guys had javelins. They had 2 of them. Their javelineers had 2. I don't know how many javelins these guys... They carry javelins that are thrown. So they actually throw their javelins before in battle. It doesn't say how many javelins they have, though. We right-click on it. Ammunition 2. Okay, so it's just like the other guys. They have 2... They chuck 2 javelins, and then they go into melee combat. Okay, so that's pretty good. Any kind of ranged stuff is nice because they can attack the other guys and they don't really get a chance to to fight you back. You get ranged bat. Once you're into melee, they'll start swinging back at you. So that's why I kind of like ranged in a way. So what does this guy have? He costs more gold, 30. The warriors are a little bit more. Not enough to make a difference in my opinion. 30 versus 25. And you need both. You need the range, the archers, and the warriors. You're always going to need some of both. Because eventually, if your warriors fall or get crushed, they'll go through and hit your archers in melee. And usually the archers are weaker in melee combat. See, this guy's got 17 defense, a much higher defense than the archers. Attack skill 11, 12, 11. So he's going to be much better in melee. I mean, look at that. Hit points 18 versus 20. The other guy had 20. So he's got a little bit less, but he's also got a higher defense, so he's not going to be taking as much damage. And again, you're going to be needing all these guys. So let's look at the other centaur. This guy's 22. Probably the male version. His defense is a little lower. Strength of 14. I would probably just mix some of these guys together. The centaur warrior plus the other one. I mean, why not, There's not that much of a difference. I mean, and it's okay to have both. I don't really see a reason not to have both. So what does this guy have? He has a light lance and a hoof. Light lance. Length. By the way, length. Length. One other stat that I forgot to talk about. This goes along with pierce, slash, blunt. There's a weapon value called length. If you actually got a longer weapon than your opponent, say this has a length 3, and the other guy say he had a dagger or something, if there's a chance that in this game there's a thing called repel. There's a chance that the guy can repel that damage, but the dagger and the guy not even attack, and it's tied to his morale check. He takes a morale check when attacking a longer weapon guy, and I think he has to subtract or add the difference or something like that. And if he makes the morale check, he attacks the guy with the weapon. So he actually has to go through another additional layer of defense before he can even attack. So that's interesting. So that's why these guys with longer weapons like lances and spears are actually pretty good, because they have that extra layer of defense. You can look at it as. And this is telling you what his armor. This stuff is tied to his protection, and it depends on where remember I said you have hit locations, helmet, shield, etc., etc. The parry value. So if this guy gets the parry, his shield is going to add additional to his protection, 9. So if you actually hit the guy, this 16 will add to 9 and become a 25 if it hits the shield. Assuming he hits the shield. And the cap is on the head, so his armor is 9 versus 7, I guess. If he hits it, his barding, which I assume is the body protection, it's going to be 7. Whereas if he hits the head, it'll be 9. It's a 2-point protection difference. And then, of course, shield. So that's how it works. I know that the helmet versus the body, they're not additive, one or the other. If it hits in the head, he uses the helmet protection. If he hits in the body, he uses the body, whatever the protection is, the body. And then the shield is added depending if it hits the shield. So technically, you could hit the head and the shield, really. I mean, deflect it off the shield and hit the head, for example, reducing the velocity. You can look at it as a deflection, which would reduce the amount of damage he takes, obviously. You can look at it that way. So that's the Centaur Warriors. And then we got a Minotaur. Oh, Minotaur class. Let me do the other Centaur before going to the war. So this unit is a Centaur, but this unit is sacred. This is a very, very, very important thing. When I mentioned that sacred units have a 1/30th cost versus the other guys, they also are sacred, which means they're affected by bless. I'm going to talk about that. I always have a bless strategy. I'm going to talk about that when I set up my bless strategy. But for now, keep in mind that they're sacred. When they're blessed, they get additional abilities that are tied with how you set up the pretender. Very, 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 very important units. Sacred units are always very important. Unfortunately, they're always usually limited by the amount they get. They're usually like cap only, which means capital only. And they're usually tied to what your dominion is. I mean, how you set up your dominion. For example, if you set it up at 6, you can usually only max out at 6 a turn, unless you increase your dominion. There are ways of increasing your dominion in the game, which I'll talk about later. But in a nutshell, if you build 5 temples, your dominion will be increased. So if I had 4, for example, started off the game with 4, and I conquered provinces and built 5 temples, it'll increase the dominion by 1, and it'll go up to 5. So then I will be able to recruit 5 of these guys in my capital instead of 4. So it's very important because you want a lot of sacred guys. You really want a lot, as many as you could get, and not just to bless. Mainly, it's really to reduce your the gold demand on gold, your turn by turn gold demand, because that upkeep cost is huge. It is much more than it seems. Any of you that watched my previous playlist with Niflheim will know that how important gold is. It's the most central thing in this game. Everything revolves around it. Really, everything revolves around gold. The amount of research, because it's tied to how many magic users you can buy to get research, which affects your ability to create super combatants and thugs. Because you want to be able to ramp up your research to get those powerful spells to where you can actually kit out thugs and super, because you need spells to create the more powerful defensive things so they can become a super combatant. And you need items. You need items, the more powerful items to put on your guys to become and you can only get items by researching construction. Again, having more guys researching to get to the items, which comes down to gold, because all those researchers cost upkeep. And the mages are going to be much more expensive than everybody else, so their upkeep costs are significant. So again, buy these sacred guys, but primarily to reduce their per term upkeep cost. I mean, 60 divided by 30 is 2. This guy's much more expensive, but he turns out to have the same per turn, roughly the same as that other guy, but he's a much better unit. His morale is higher. Look at that. His defense is higher, attack skill, and more in 23 hit points. But more importantly, he's blessed. He's sacred and thus can be blessed, and that's really, really huge. Okay, so unfortunately he's also a berserker. I don't see that as a positive ability, as I commented before. Okay, so that's him. Let's go to our last 2 units. We got a Minotaur class, 2 Minotaurs. Again, we got a male and female Minotaur. So what does this guy have? He's more expensive He's not sacred, so I'm not going to be getting as many of these. But these guys are real good combatants. Well, they got a lot of hit points. They got a huge strength. So if you hit with a weapon, he's going to be adding 16 when you compare to your enemy's protection. Really good. His attack skill is not very good. Defense skill not very good. Well, they're not going to be casting spells. Morale 13, that's okay. That's pretty good. I mean, anything over 11, really, in my opinion, is good. 13. Well, think about it. You're rolling 2 dice to compare to morale. What's the average roll of two 6-sided dice? Well, it's actually a 7. 7. And again, with I know probabilities in playing dice games, and it's you want to roll a 7 or less. That's the sum of rolling. If you want to roll exactly a 7, your chance there are 6 combinations out of 36. You got a 1 out of 6 chance of rolling a 7. If you want to roll a 7 or less, it's the sum of rolling a 7 or less plus a 6 or less plus a 5 or less plus a 4, which is 6 plus 5 plus 4, which is 15, plus 3 is 18, plus 2 is 20, or 21. 21 out of 36 is your probability of rolling a 7 or less, which is above 50%. I think it's like, 26, 27, 30, oh, for God's sake. What am I saying? 56, 57, 58%, something like that, right around 60% or just below 60% of rolling a 7 or less. Anyway, I'm getting a little bit off topic here. That's kind of how probabilities work. When you got to look about that when you're looking at morale, kind of, or other things to gauge their ability to win. So what else does this guy have? I covered all these other things, but he's got a trample ability, and this is a really cool ability. In this game, you can't move through guys unless you're flying over them, or I don't think ethereal units can move through walls, but I think even ethereal units, once they move into contact with a guy, they don't actually move through a guy. Trample actually moves through a guys and they kick them to the side. They actually create stun they actually create damage plus stun damage. It's really cool the way it works. They trample guys that are smaller than them, 3, so they can trample a 2 and a 1. A 2 is most human units are size 2, so this guy can trample over basically everybody that is human. He can go through. It's really not to be underestimated. They can actually run through a line and get to if they survive, they can make it through the end of the line, for example. And it's almost the same as flank rear. If you say guys have flank rear, these guys don't have the flank rear. You can attack rear. They'll just run straight through the middle. Of course, that's assuming they survive, depending on how big, what kind of force they're up against. They may not survive. They don't have a very good defense, and their protection is so they're going to be taking hits, but they do have a 25 hit points, which is very good. Very good hit points. And their speed is relatively good. What's 16? 14, I mean, that is not bad. Okay. So that's the Minotaur. Let's check this. The last unit is this other Minotaur. So this is the female, or maybe this is the male version. It's got 27 hit points. 17 strength, 17, 9, 8, 8. What's his defense skills? 8. What was the other one? 7. Okay, this one's actually a little lower, isn't it? 25 hit points. 16, 8, 7, 8. 16, 8, 7, 8 versus 16, 8, 7, 8. Okay, this has got 1 more strength, 8, 1 more attack skill, 7 defense, 16, 8, 7, 8. 16, 8, 7, 8. Okay, so this one doesn't seem quite as good, does it? 16, 8, 7, 8. So 25, 3, 9, 11 versus 25, 3, 9, 11. 27. It's got 2 more hit points. 3, 9, 11. Same magic. I don't know. It seemed to me that the other one looked a little better, but, we'll have to check that out. So those are all of your units. Now let's look at leaders. Leaders. So what do we have here? A Black Harpy leader. So what's... Again, these are more expensive, 25 gold, but you're getting a leader. So what is the benefit of a leader? Leader has these additional stats down here. Leadership, magic leader, undead, that other units don't have. And it's got the ability to carry items. You can build items in this game, put them in the item slots. So this guy's can lead 10 units. He doesn't have any magic, or some units are flagged as magic or undead. In order to lead undead, you need undead leadership. In order to lead magic units, you need magic leadership. And leadership is basically other units, all other units. So all those minotaurs, for example, or the other units, this unit, but he can only lead 10, which is not good. This is not a very good lead at all. I mean, I wouldn't be using this guy for leader. I'll probably be using him as a scout. Oh, another thing about units, just units versus leaders. Units cannot move on their own in this game. They just don't. You actually have to add them to a leader in his army and move them. If they don't have a leader, they don't move. They're just stuck wherever. So you absolutely have to have leaders to move your armies, guys. It is stealthy 60, which is pretty good, and it can fly. So this is basically a scout. The other game, as Niflheim, I really didn't use the scouts. I had created warrior scouts, and I used them as a combat unit, but those scouts were a lot different. They were much more expensive. These guys are only 25, and they can fly. These guys can fly. I will actually be using these guys as scouts in this game, because they can move really quick. The thing that I don't like about scouts is they tend to die. Usually if they're found out in the province, they die because you can't. They don't have the ability to win. I mean, if they're up against a 40 or 60 size province with that many patrol points, they're just not going to be able to survive. So usually if you find them, they die, and I kind of don't like that. But then again, these guys are cheaper, and they're going to buy information, so in that sense, they're good. So what else do we got? We got one of these guys, a satyr commander. This guy's got a leadership of 40. He's a little bit better leader. He's going to be good for moving the satyrs around. I mean, for example, we got those centaurs. I wouldn't want to, if we got one of these guys on the centaur leader, I won't be getting his full movement, because those cavalry, those units have a much better movement speed. Remember, they were in the 30-something. You guys are 18, so. But then again, these guys aren't as good of a leader. They're also a little bit cheaper, though, aren't they? And he's got more slots. The normal guy, I think, has 7 slots. A normal human guy, they got 2 arm slots, one for a weapon shield. You can actually put 2 weapons if you wanted, but it's not very good unless you have. In this game, if you put 2 weapons, if he held 2 weapons, you would get penalized by the sum of their weapon length. So if this guy had 2 swords, for example, that were length 2, the length of 2s would be added. 2 plus 2 is 4, and you would subtract that 4. I believe it's subtracted from the attack skill, making him much likely to miss. Unless you have this special ability called the ambidextrous ability, that will reduce this. Some units are ambidextrous, which means they can actually use a right and left-handed weapon. Right and left-handed, and it'll have a value to say something like ambidextrous 2. So in this example, if it was ambidextrous 2, it would subtract 2 from that. And I used 4. The two weapon lengths of 2 would come to 4. If it was ambidextrous 2, it would reduce 2 from that. So it'd be 4 minus 2 would be 2. So you'd only take a reduction of 2 from the attack skill if he had an ambidextrous 2 level. And that's an example. Of course, with 2 swords, for example, they're also adding together. I mean, they are adding together also. The weapon damage, the weapon has a damage rating, so you hit with both of them, you're summing 2 weapons together. So there's something to be said from that. Sacrificing your ability to hit, but you're increasing a damage potential. And of course, you're not taking a shield. So your guy's more vulnerable, say, to arrows and things, and just getting hit in general. So there are trade-offs in logical ways. So this guy's got 2 arms, so he can have a weapon, a shield, a helmet, 1 helmet, 1 head, 1 helmet, and 1 body armor. And he's got feet, so we can put shoes. So there's items on his feet and 2 items, rings and things like that. All kinds of special magic items. And he can hold up to 30 gems. You can hold up to 30. Each leader can hold up to 30. You may want to hold. You can usually only transfer gems in labs. But, some cases you may want guys to hold gems because they may be able to hold them for a magic leader. If in battle he carry gems and he's not in a lab province, he starts using them. If he uses them all up, he can think of this guy holding gems as a shuttler. He can move the gems back to the magic leader, for example. Okay, so that's the Satyr commander. What do we got? Okay, then we got the Minotaur Lord. Minotaur Lord. Okay, so your Minotaur commander. He's 70 gold, and his stats are a little bit better. 29 hit points, size 3, protection 9, 17 skill. But again, he's got the item slots, and he's got leadership. This guy's got 60 leadership. So he's going to be leading, but he's got no magic or undead leaders. So that's the Minotaur guy. Oh, and I'm sure that he had he's got the trample ability. Cool. So now we got the 2 centaurs. So we got a male and female version. Centaur Hierophant. And this guy is priest and sacred. So I'm going to be buying these guys because they're priest and sacred. And they got 1 magic. They only have 1 skill level. The priest skill levels generally range from 1 to 5. In practice, though, you're only going to see really 1 to 2. There are a couple of guys that have 3. You set a prophet. What happens is he will automatically become sacred, a priest, and his level will automatically be set. If it is under 3, it's automatically set to 3. And if his original base priest level is under 3, it is set to 3 if he becomes a prophet. If it was 3 or more, it just adds 1. So say this guy was a priest level 3, and I made him a prophet, he would become priest level 4. Okay, and of course, there are spells in this game. Priests have a priest spell, holy spell category that they can only have access to, and this guy is only tied to level 1, which really is the lowest tier. But, a level 3 priest has much more powerful priest spells. And this guy's going to be getting 1 magic path, which is kind of good. So if I right-click on it, it tells you what my possibilities are. It's either going to be nature or earth. I'll get to the magic paths in a minute. And I got 100% of getting one or the other. So it's really 50% chance of getting one of these. It's either going to be nature or earth. There's a 100% chance of getting either one of these is what that means. Okay, so what does he have? Anything that I haven't covered? Inspirational. Okay, that's a cool ability. That means all the armies that this guy can have, they're all getting +1 to their morale. So that's a nice thing. That's what inspirational is. Of course, that's a good thing. Your morale determines your chance. So if he was leading guys, if he was leading a bunch of these centaurs right here, for example, their morale is 11. They become a 12. And this guy, this is the same thing as the other guy, except it's a male versus female. There'll be a slight difference in these things. And their weapon, short bow. This guy's got a short bow. What did he have? A long bow. Short bow versus long bow. I will be making use of both, but I mean, the difference is not really that much. Really not that much. I mean, it's a toss-up. I'll be using both. So that's those two. And then we got our mage units. Got 3 kinds of mage. They got dryads. Okay, so what's a dryad? Dryad. So that's their magic paths. Okay, in this game there are 8 magic paths. There are what are called 4 elemental and 4 sorcery. Elemental that's just like the 4 elements: earth, air, fire, water. So those are the elemental paths. He's got one of the elemental paths, water, and at level 1. And then we got the sorcery paths, which are going to be nature, blood, astral, and death. Nature, blood, astral, death. Those are the, quote, sorcery paths. and he's got one of them, nature. So there's a total of 8 paths. They are extremely important. They determine your spells, what kind of spells you can cast. For example, this guy can cast a spell that is level 1 water up to level 1 and level 1 nature. He can cast or just a level 1 nature or just a level 1 water, but nothing else. He's got a 2 priest level, which is actually higher than the warrior priest. So this is kind of a priest class also, and I like it. Again, he's sacred, so that's going to reduce their upkeep cost. Look at this, 185. Wow. Let's cast. If this guy was not sacred, his upkeep cost would be 185 divided by 15, which equals 12.3. Call it 12. So but he is sacred, so that's going to be half of that. Half of 12 is 6. And that's significant. That doesn't sound like that much, 6 versus 12. But trust me, if you have 20 of these guys because you want a bunch of them researching, that 20 versus 6, 20, well, let's look at that. Look at it that way. 20 times 12 equals 240. That is unbelievably expensive. If this guy was not sacred, it would cost me 240 to have 20 of these guys in the game. But since he's sacred, it's costing me 120, which is a significant number, but certainly not as significant as the 240. And these guys I'm going to be buying a lot of because I need to do magic research. And they got awe. Okay, so what is awe? Awe is an interesting effect in this game. If a guy's swinging at you, they have to take a morale check in order to swing at you. If they fail the morale check, they just don't attack. They just standing looking at you, bedazzled or, whatever you want to call it. So this guy's got all 4. I think that adds 4. I'm not 100% sure what the mechanics are. It may be a morale check plus 4. I think that's how that works. I'm not 100% sure. He's stealthy. He's got forest fire I covered, recuperation I covered, supply bonus 10. Okay, in this game, every province has a supply rating. It may be something like 100. Say it's 100. I could supply up to 100 supply points of units. The supply points of the units are their size minus 1. Size over 1 minus 1. So size 1 is always 1. Size 2 minus 1 is 1. So this guy costs 1 supply point. If I had 20 of them, 20 times 1 is 20. 20. But he's also giving me a 10-point bonus. So that's cool. I mean, a 10-point bonus. He's actually reducing the amount of supplies they consume, which is very, very good. Embed a few of these guys into your armies, which I'm going to be doing, and it reduces your supply demand. Trust me, in this game, in order to get huge, your provinces don't have a whole lot of supply, most of them. The ones that have a lot of supplies are like the castle provinces and farmlands. We get a lot of people that can have grain, but most other provinces don't. There are a couple of ways to get around that, one of which is supply bonuses, and the other are certain items. There's a cauldron of broth and a bark skin of wine or something of wine, skin of wine. I think it gives 50. There's one other, too. I can't think of it, but the cauldron of broth and the skin of wine are 2 items. The broth gives you a 100-point bonus, and the wine skin thing, I think it was 50, if I'm not mistaken. Those are pretty much 2 essential items in this game. I mean, because if you get large armies and you move into a province and it's over the supply, they're going to start starving. And what happens when they starve? If they starve more than 1 turn, they're going to decrease their stats. Your morale will decrease, and then eventually they have an increased chance of getting those afflictions that I mentioned, and eventually they'll die. They will actually die. It is absolutely horrible to go over the supply. You're really just throwing away money because you've got to buy these units, and if you just let them die to starvation, you really just wasted gold, and you don't want to waste gold. What else does he have? Seduction. Okay, this is an interesting ability. I've never played This is the first time I'm playing Pangea. I've never actually played Pangea, even in Dom 3 and 4. I've never played them, which is one of the reasons why I want to play them this time. Was the fact that I kind of like those cavalry guys that's moving fast. And this is a special ability. I will use it at least some point in the game. This you can seduce and sneak away with them. Seduce enemy commanders and sneak away with them to a friendly province. Seduction is a stealthy action, can only be used against members of the opposite sex. The seduction must take place in a province bordering a friendly territory unless the seducer is able to fly away with the victim. Flying away can only be done with victims that are same size or smaller. Very interesting. So their size is 2, which is cool. So that's most human size units. So she's got a chance of seducing I'm assuming this is female, a female, a male human leader of size 2 or smaller, and then just taking them away. I don't know what that means. Does the leader become part of your leaders? I don't know. So I'll be using that at some point in the game. Don't know when, but I'll try to make use of this special ability, and they have it. I plan on using these guys mostly as researchers, and then eventually I'm going to filter them, and I want to use some of them in combat. Kind of like the other one, a little better in combat, but because it's got a little better abilities. What's his other ability? Beastmaster. +1. Animals have increased morale. Okay, so there are different types of units in this game. There are humans, there are demons, there are undead, there are magic beings. I talked about that before, magic, undead. There are also animals. So animals, I think, fall under normal leadership. But if this guy has animals, their morale of the animals goes up. So that's cool. Commanded by a beastmaster. I like that. So the animals they're okay. I mean, most of the animals are okay. Some of them are, usually you have to what do you call it? Conjure other units in this game. Most of the animals will be conjuring. These guys will actually be conjuring a lot of animals because they get those. I mentioned that the Pangea, their special site was +6 nature gems every turn. And most of the spells that raise animals are nature. So I'm going to be using a lot of them in this game just because that's what I'm going to have a lot of. So that's this leader. Pretty good. It's a very good leader. And when we got this other leader, so it's a dryad and a dryad mother, which is very similar to the other guy, but much more expensive. The other one was 185. This one's 300. So it's another 120 points. As you can see, it's got another nature scale. It's also 2 priests, and it's got 1 extra random magic. So I got a 100% chance of getting another water, and or either a water or earth. And then I got a 10% chance of getting another, either a water, earth, or nature. So you can look at it this way. If I recruited 10 of these people, 10 of these under normal odds, 9 of them should have an extra water or earth. And then the 10th one, I will get a water or earth plus one of these 3. So I'm going to actually get 2 of these scales. One of these or one of these 3. One of these 2 and one of these 3. So that's normal odds, of course, normal odds. And what does that leave me? And then their stats probably going to be a little bit better than the other one. I mean, okay. So what else does it have? It's got a Ivy Lord. Cool. It's Vine Men, more Vine Men when summoning. There's a spell called Vine Men. This guy can recruit more of them. Unit is perceived as Vine Man. How many more will be in recruit? I think is it 1 more? I'm not sure. I think there's 1 more that will be recruited each time I cast that Vine Man spell. So I want to look at that Vine Man spell. Again, that's a nature type woods thing. Vine Men, I've played them before. They're really not very good, but hey, they can serve as chaff. Usually magic beams don't have any gold cost because you conjure them, which means they're not going with upkeep. So it's a good idea to get conjure units. Okay. Oh, 1 more. The Pan. Probably and this is probably this nation's version of a SC, super combatant or thug. Okay, so it's got It costs 325. It's the most expensive unit. It's very expensive, and unfortunately, it's not sacred. So I can't really be using too many of these guys with low gold. Now, one thing I've been thinking of, and I'm going to do in this game, is I am going to purchase one of these guys early in the game and set him as a prophet. Because then if I set this guy as a prophet, I won't have to worry about that upkeep. Because we'll look at it this way. 325 gold. For every one of these guys I buy normally, 325 divided by 15 is equal to, 21.6. We'll call that 22 because it's rounded up to 22. Each one of these guys is going to cost me 22 gold in upkeep. That is horrendous. I mean, I'm not going to be able to support that many of them. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, I'm probably not even going to buy one of these, other than the one I'm going to buy at the beginning for my profit. I'm not going to be purchasing many of these guys. They're just too doggone expensive. And certainly not at the beginning of the game, again, with accepting only that the priest, the prophet that I want to get. That's a hugely expensive, but it's a powerful, very powerful guy. Look at this, 1/4 and 1 blood. That's the only way I'm going to get blood with my guys under normal conditions. And he's also got 1 additional spell. Wow. So again, he's going to get earth and blood 100% and a 10% chance of getting one of these other 3. So 10 of these guys, I should get 1 guy with another good thing. And what has he got? What's his special abilities? He's got animal awe. Okay, so this is the same thing as awe, which I talked about with the other guys, except it only affects animals. So, and it's against animals, he's going to be really good. Animals attacking him are going to be less likely to attack him. He's poison resistance. Okay, I don't think I mentioned this. A lot of weapons in this game. Well, I mentioned the blunt, pierce, slash, and length. Now, there's also an additional level of units, which are poison, shock, fire, cold. Is there another type? Poison, shock, fire, cold. Poison, shock, fire, cold. I think that's all of them. I might be missing one. Oh, decay. Right, decay. Decay is something a little bit different, but poison, shock, fire, cold. So those are special attacks that weapons or spells can do to units. For example, if this guy was hit by a poison weapon, you check their resistance. Your resistance to that poison to see if he was affected by it. This guy's got a very good poison. His resistance is 7. So if he passes his poison resistance, then the poison doesn't have any additional effect. But if he fails, for example, then the way the poison works, it has a certain it'll be within the attack rating of the weapon. It'll be something like poison. I don't know. I want to say 12 or something. Like, say it's a poison 12 weapon, then it'll take that 12 points and it will it divides it over a number of rounds. It's like recurring damage. I'm not sure if it goes over, I want to say 10 rounds or something like that. So, for example, let's hypothetically assume did 12. He got hit. It did 12 points of damage over 10 rounds. So the first 2 rounds, it would do 2 points of damage, which is 2/4, and then the last 8 rounds, it would do 1 poison damage each turn, something like that, to get a total of 12 poison damage. If the attack was rated at poison 12. And I'm just using that as a hypothetical. Chill, cold, everything. Guys, you do the same thing with chill or cold, and there are guys that have different cold protection, fire protection, etc., etc., etc. Niflheim that I did the last playlist on, they were frozen. Everything you wanted to be in cold. Cold was very, very important to them, and they had cold protection, so they basically weren't affected by cold, and in fact, they needed that for them. So what else do we got from these guys? Beastmaster, I covered that, and he's a monster summoner. This gives a chance to be a monster every month. Okay, cool. So there are guys in this game that can just randomly summon monsters without you doing anything. And there's a special term for that players of this game use. I can't remember what it is in the forum. There's just one of those terms, like the players like to use SC, super combative thug, meat shields. It's one of those terms for guys that can special summon units without you doing anything. Some of the gods that you design will have this ability of all kinds of different sorts. So that's another good reason to get at least one of these guys early, which is what I want to do with my Prophet. I want to get one of these guys, set him to Prophet, so I'm not paying my I get my free guy without having to get the gold cost. Plus, he'll be a Prophet. In addition to these abilities, he'll have level 3. He'll be Sacred level 3. And he will be able to get a monster every month for free. Or I should say a chance of summoning one or more monsters per month. I have no idea what the chance is. Is it 2% or 20%? I really don't know. I assume it's something reasonable, like 10 to 20% would be reasonable. But I don't know for sure what the exact rating is. Okay, so that was it. We covered all our guys. So, okay, so I got to get some coffee and take a whiz. Okay, so the next step in this game is to move to our pretender creation. This is the most important step of the game, and it will probably decide whether you win or lose. So this is seriously. Well, I want to say that probably 75% of whether you win or lose is going to be, with the other 25 being some amount of luck. Who you're up against. You don't know what nations you're going to be bordering against, or if you're playing a human opponent, what the quality of your opponents are, of course. There are players that are elite players, and there are players that are just starting out that just, don't know what's going on, basically. I am somewhere in the middle. I'm not claiming to be an elite player. But I'm certainly not a newbie. Somewhere in the middle. Okay, so I kind of have an idea of what I want to do. As a matter of fact, I already have an idea. I set up the last game. I just completely tried a new strategy right off from scratch without testing it at all. This game I got a little different. I designed a pretender, and I actually tested a couple of times, just through a year or two, just to make sure that I didn't get completely blown away, and to make sure that it was a reasonable strategy. And I think came up with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to be taking a physical form. These are your in a nutshell. These are the things you get to choose from. Again, this is for new players starting out. You got it. I went into great depth talking about all these in my last episode, so I'm not going to go into great depth talking about all these different designs, but I wanted to do a brief overview. These levels at the top, Dom 4, 3, 2, 1. These guys are worth to minion 4. These are worth 3. These are 2 and 1. These ones at the top are all immobile statue type things. And the strategy behind these guys are usually a bit cheaper in cost, but they start out with Dom 4. They're immobile, so you're not going to be using them as direct fighting, in that way, because they're just, frankly, they're immobile. You can't move them around. There are ways to move them around, but there's a teleport spell, for example. But the way it works is you teleport from a lab to lab, so you actually got to go to a lab province. If you teleport to a province, it's not a lab, and I've actually made this mistake in the game. You will be stuck there until you build a lab, and because it's like you can't. It's a ritual spell, and in order to cast ritual spells, you have to be at a lab. So if you built this guy and teleport to a province, say you want to do a battle,
and it doesn't have a lab, you're stuck there. And labs are unbelievable. They're 500 gold, which is it may be even more than you get in a turn. The cost of labs, super expensive. So that's what these monoliths are. Most of the time, people use them for a massive bless strategy. You don't want to use the thing. It's got a fairly low cost that can't move, and it's got high dominion. So you're really going for the bless strategy, quote unquote bless. I mentioned that sacred units are affected by bless. To get the maximal bless, that's what you get these things for. These things are like titans. Look at them as titans. They're really, really expensive. The most expensive guys. But you want to use them as, to create some kind of really powerful being, basically. One other thing I might want to mention. Let me go back to this screen down here. Down here, you've got awake, dormant, imprisoned. So notice that it says 0 points, 150, 350. So you get a certain amount of points to spend to build your guy and your scales, everything. And it is for this guy, for example, it's 225. If I'm awake, I get 0 points. That means I don't get any extra points. I get 0 extra points. If I'm dormant, I get 150 extra points. Notice it went up to 375. If I'm imprisoned, it's going to go up 350, 575 points. The price, however, for dormant, the guy's doesn't come in the game until a whole year, which is 12 turns. Each turn is a month. So I'm not going to get this guy in the game for an entire year, and that's the price you pay for getting 150 points. And, of course, imprisoned is 3 years. That's 36 turns into the game, give or take a couple of months. Normally, if you're playing what I call a micro game against 1 or 2 opponents, or 3 or 4, I don't know. I would probably say even up to 5. I wouldn't even bother with where I would go with awake and just get the toughest monster. Because really, in a micro game, it's just no. In my opinion, there's no point in getting anything else, depending on how you define a micro game. I always play large, as I mentioned, because I like to have a full game where if I can knock out somebody early, there's still other opponents on the other side of the map that can build up. Having a real game and not just a flat out rush game, which is what micro games are. So if you have played a larger game, say, what I am, 15 opponents, then any of these options are viable. Micro games, they're really not. Again, that's my opinion, just my opinion. And if you're playing a human opponent, you don't want to take him prison because you'll lose. Unless you have an unbelievable strategy. You're really looking at an unbelievable, just buff strategy through bless, but still, even that wouldn't quite work because a lot of the bless effects are called what's the word? Incarnate. Incarnate means that the bless effect only takes place if your god or pretender, whatever you want to call it, is on the map, on the board. So if he's actually on the board awake, then you get the incarnate bless effects. The gods can get killed, but you can call them back. However, the problem is if they get killed, they reduce their magic's passed by 1. So, for example, this guy has one of these, assuming you don't increase it. If you don't increase them at all, and he dies and he gets called back, you subtract 1 from both of these. So he now has a 0 and a 0, which is horrible. Really, it's really bad to get killed. And not only that, he will get whatever afflictions he had at the time he got killed. So if he had a lost eye and a lost a leg, he will get the lost eye, lost a leg, and then in addition to the -1, which really, really kind of sucks. Really sucks. Like I said, those afflictions are horrible. They are horrible. Okay, so in my game, I'm going to be going dormant, and I'm going to be selecting a physical form. I already decided. Like I said, I did a little preliminary test to see if my strategy was viable. And I'm going to go with a strategy that I haven't normally used this. I'm going with a super combatant super combatant got a pretender that's going to be dormant. Normally, I always go in prison because, like I said, I play large, and I go with the bless effects. I'm going to try to get a little both out of this. The reason that I don't like playing these really huge monsters in this game, although I admit that they're really fun to do that, is like I said, they tend to take damage. They are not invulnerable. If I was to just rush this guy out and attack 10 provinces on his own, I will say that the chances of him dying or in one of those provinces are probably at least 50%. The chances of having more, at least 3 afflictions, I'm saying 50%, probably 75% chance of having 2 afflictions if I did nothing other than doing that, just rushing and killing provinces. So I mean that's and I've seen that happen so many of the games I played that has happened. You really got to know what you're doing with these things. I mean, if you just rush around, I'm telling you, the first thing that's going to happen is they're going to start getting wounded, and then probably shortly after that, or getting an affliction, they'll die, unless you have some way of eliminating the afflictions or keeping them strong. For example, that what was that ability that my guys have? Not regeneration, but oh crud, I can't think of the word right now. Where that removes afflictions. There's that thing that removes recuperation. That's what I was thinking. Recuperation eliminates afflictions. Okay, so he's going to be dormant. First thing I'm going to do is run out my scales. I mentioned in this game that gold is the single most important resource in the game. It's really going to decide just about anything. That is not an underestimate. If you want to look at the deep view of this game, you can look at everything in terms of gold. Like I said, your ability to magic guys to do research is based on gold. Ability to get armies based on gold. To get units, items is based on gold because you've got to research everything and before you build them. So it all comes down to gold. You can look if you want to really look at it like in an absolute sterile mathematical sense. Every damage point you do or receive was cost of gold. The cost. I mean, you kind of look at that in in a macro sense because it's so freaking important. It just is in this game. I mean, I'm always ultimately limited by gold. I mean, once you get huge armies, how big are they going to get? They're going to be capped out ultimately by your gold ability. And there are certain ways to increase your gold. One is by taking the provinces, farming provinces, and building forts around those provinces. I'll talk about that a little more in depth when I get on the map because I want to use examples. But you want to build forts that have good. They have a good forts that have a good rating that can gather gold and resources from adjacent provinces, in particular farming provinces. If you can take out AIs and harness their home province, really good because the home provinces are really good. They're usually like a factor of 4 or 5 better than even the farming provinces. What are other ways to reduce? You can reduce your gold cost by getting sacred units. What other ways? There is an item that actually gives you gold. It's a level construction 8 item. The drop near gives you 8. It'll give you 200 gold a turn. Of course, that's a level 8 construction item that most of the time don't even get. It's not one of the paths that are probably the best to go at, level 8, but if you can get it, that's one item. And there are sites on the map, there are like gold mines and things like that on the map that can actually give you some gold. There are a few of them scattered around. I think the gold mine is like 100, or I think the arena was 25 gold a turn or something like that. If you get lucky and find some of those, they can help. Other ways to get gold. Spells, there's a spell, transmutation.
alchemical transmutation that can cash in earth gems for gold. Sometimes I've been forced to do that, seriously, but I don't like to do that. I'd rather have the gems, but sometimes you need to. And what other spells? Is there something else on the map? I think that pretty much covers it. Just about all the main ways are going to be taking provinces, building forts, and really indirectly getting your dominion up. If you've got good income, then it's in your best interest to get your dominion higher, which is growth. Growth is almost an essential stat to get up because it determines income, supplies, and your growth rate, the reproductive rate of your provinces. The more people you have, the more taxes that the province are going to have. There's a huge difference between a province that, say, has 100 versus one that's 1,000 versus one that's 10,000. Trust me, the difference is going to be 100 or more gold in those cases, between 10,000 and 100, something like that. Okay, so what was my I think my other stat was I was going to bring this up to 4. Take a hit in luck. Luck is usually one of those things that you don't want to go all the way down to 3 because all you're going to be seeing is bad luck every turn. And I think every nation has got 3 special leaders that appear during the game. The chance that their chance that they're going to appear early versus late is tied for luck to some extent. I've played the games where I've ramped the luck down to -3 and I've never even saw those special leaders. Where if you ramped it up to +3, you'll probably see them within the first year, maybe even all 3 of them. I don't know. I don't know what the percentage chance they appear, but I do know that it's tied with luck. And there's also just random events being good or bad is tied with good luck versus bad luck. I've actually tried +3 really good luck, and it is really freaking good. There's virtually all good luck and virtually no bad luck. Magic, scales, or drain. I've usually always take a -3. I think that's really kind of bad, especially after my first playlist. I took a -3, and I was never able to get my spells up to the point where I could create a super combatant. So it really came back to bite me in the rump. I mean, -3. So I'm going to be staying at 0 this game. And my mages, you notice they were all sacred, so I should be able to get a reasonably good research numbers of mages going with just the average level of research, which is 0. Again, I ramped this up to 3 to get the best growth rate. So these sun and cold scales, some nations want heat, some are cold. Most are probably in between. Niflheim is a cold nation that I played. They wanted absolute 3 cold. I think Abyssia and Alanka like 2 or 3 heat. So going in either of these directions are going to hurt me. Notice it reduces my income to 7 from 12 after I ran it up to 12. And if I go to heat 1, it's the same. It's a +7, so it's really bad. Productivity sloth. There are resources in points in this game, which is one of those things that you need to recruit units. I pointed out that it was gold, resources, and recruiting points. So you can increase the amount of resources. I can run this up. It also affects gold a little bit, but not as much as growth. It went into +15, and I got more resources. Similarly to with Order and Turmoil, it will run income up a bit, but it also reduces unrest reduction. It gives you recruitment points, test 7, +2 resources, a little bit of resources, supplies 30, but most importantly, you're going to get events. The random events are going to increase a little bit more, and luck is -10%, which would probably be good if you had misfortune. In my case, misfortune, so it would be better it's more likely to be bad luck a little bit more likely to have bad luck than good luck, so luck -10% would be good in that case. But I'm not going to take that. And then, of course, Dominion. The name of the game is Dominions. Dominion is your faith, I guess you could look at it as. And it's the amount that your candles are going to spread out in the game. You want to have
good dominion because it's the chance that your scales in the game will start increasing, improving to what you set them at this level. So if I had in my home province, it's going to start at this whatever levels I set it at, which is going to be this and 4. I'm going to start at 4, which is actually kind of low, but there are ways to increase your dominion in this game. One way is, for example, every multiple of 5 temples can increase this base level to 1. So I build 5 temples, it'll go up to 5. 10 temples, it'll go up 2 to 6. But keep in mind, temples are physical locations built on the map. They're very freaking expensive. It's 400 gold. If an enemy takes the province, they will destroy the temple. You've just lost 400 gold. They're really tough to defend. Let me put it that way. They are tough, really tough to defend. It's not just defending the provinces, but if you build temples, to defend that. Okay, so now let's get to our pretender design. I'm going to take I took this guy. Okay, now remember when this guy, he had a protection of 14. One of the disadvantages of this particular guy that I'm taking, which is going to be the Hound of Hades. I'm taking the Hound of Hades. He's got unbelievable hit points, which is really cool. Unbelievable strength, a really good attack skill. Defense stinks. Precision stinks. Remember, that affects his ability to spell, caster, precision. His protection really, 14 is good. Okay, that is good. But one of his weaknesses, he doesn't have, for God's sake, recuperation, which means if he gets afflictions, he doesn't have an ability to remove those afflictions, which is really bad. Let's talk about what he does have. He has Fear 11, a hugely powerful ability. I believe the way it works is all enemies within a 5 square radius take a morale check versus 11, I think is what it is, and if they break, they rout. So he's got a chance of making guys rout even if they don't take damage with Fear. It's a very, very, one of the more powerful abilities that a lot of people like taking. That and Awe are really two really powerful. A guy that has Fear and Awe is really strong, but that's really hard to get. It's not impossible, but you're really sacrificing a lot of stuff to get both of those. He's poison resistant. I talked about that. He's got a patrol bonus of 50. So I mentioned those guys that are stealthy. So in this game, you have patrol points that are used against stealthy guys that are infiltrating, and it's equal. Its units are worth, I want to say 1 point for one man-sized unit or something like that. This guy automatically gets 50 if you put him on patrol. A patrol bonus of 50, which is very nice. He's more likely to stop guys from infiltrating. He's got Spirit Sight. Okay, so if I right-click it tells you what you want to get. He can see invisible units and gets no penalties from darkness. So there are a lot of invisible units, ethereal units, ghosts, specters, guys like that, which are good because they go through the walls. It's one of the reasons why I like them. Also, ethereal. One of the benefits of ethereal units is if they're attacked by a guy with normal, non-magic weapons, they only hit 25% of the time. In other words, 75% of the time they will miss attacking ethereal units. Okay, so this guy can see ethereal units. I'm not exactly sure. No penalties. I can see invisible. I'm not sure how it translates into that ability to affect 75% chance to automatically miss. I'm not sure how that translates. It does. I'm sure that it does translate into ability. I'm not exactly sure how. I'll look that up. Disease resistant, 100. So he's got a very good chance of not getting diseases. Notice that it's diseases, though, and not just afflictions. So he can move over those provinces, horrible provinces that spread diseases, and he's probably not going to be affected at all, which is good. It would have been nice as if it was affliction resistant. I don't think there is such a thing. And what is his other ability? Unsurroundable. Okay. One other little tidbit about combat. If you have a guy that's completely surrounded, their chances of hitting you drastically increase. The more than one guy that attacks you, I can't remember exactly how it works. I think that it's +1 to the attack for every guy over one, something like that. I will post it in the background. For example, this guy, he's got 5, unsurroundable 5. That means up to 5 guys can surround him, and he does not get any penalty. So 6 or more, he starts getting the penalty. So remember, they're in square hexes. There's a total of, on the battle board. So there's a total of eight hexes that can surround him, that can actually attack him. And if there's 3 human-sized guys in a hex, that's 24. That would be almost sure death, even for this guy, if you're that badly surrounded. You don't want to get surrounded, in other words, in this game. Of course, you really don't have any control the way things move around, but if you start getting surrounded, it's really bad. Just put it that way. It is bad to get surrounded. It's better to do the surrounding than to be this guy that's getting surrounded. So that's this guy. Notice that I'm pointing out his protection is 14. That's going to be important for what for my build. I am going to run this up to 8. Each one of these things, these are all your magic paths I already talked about, so I'm not going to talk about them again. But you want to set them and get them up to at least 4 so that you can get a bless points. Remember, I talked about bless, that your blessing effects on your sacred units. So this is where this comes in. I'm going to run that up to 8, which is also going to add to his protection 1 point. That's a side effect of getting earth. So I'm getting 8. I'm getting +8 to my protection. Remember, my protection was 14. He's going to be 22. So indirectly, such an unbelievable protection is going to make it much harder for guys that hit me to actually do damage, because they're going to be rolling against 22. Remember, you're rolling 2 6-sided dice, so you roll a 2 6s. How can you get higher than 22? Well, you're going to better have a good strength. Remember, we're using strength when we're comparing it. It's going to be the strength plus the weapon damage. The weapon damage versus the weapon attack. Remember, weapon attack, weapon damage. And comparing it, in my case, to 22 plus a dice roll. So 22 is unbelievably high starting off. So it's going to be very hard for these guys to actually do damage to me when they hit. And it's going to indirectly make them more likely to get, to actually, their percentage chance of getting affliction is very low. Remember, those afflictions are really bad. So this is one way to try to avoid getting afflictions by going. It's not the optimal way. I guess there is no optimal way. Optimally, you could have that recuperation benefit, which could remove the afflictions. This guy's not going to have an ability to remove afflictions normally, which is bad, very, very bad. So I'm going to try to circumnavigate that to some extent by ramping up Earth, getting a good Earth bless, which will help reduce my ability to get afflictions to begin with. And I'm also going to run this up to 5 death, because I want to get a bless effect that's in the death that I'm going to talk about. So I actually reduced this to 0. Probably the weak points of my strategy that I'm using. Well, the good point is Dormant. He's a very strong god, a very strong rush god. But no god there is no such thing as unbeatable. All right, if something was unbeatable, the game would be broken. Okay, so if there was some god that couldn't get affected at all and just trounced everything, seriously, that would be broken. But there are really super powerful guys, and although they're not unbeatable, their chances of getting damage is very low. So that's what I'm trying to get here. A guy that's going to blast through and do unbelievable damage. He's got really good protection. And he's got those 5 attacks that I pointed out. Actually, I didn't talk about these. Look at all these attacks. He's got 5 different attacks. He's got 3 heads, so that's why he can have 3 helmets. He's only got 5 items overall compared to the human, which was, 7? Or was it 8, I think. So he doesn't get quite as many slots. But I can put 3 helmets on him, plus 2 items. And then he's got 5 different attacks. He's got 3 ghost-rending bites from each of the 3 heads. Their attack ability is 13, and their damage is 29, and it's magic damage. Cool. It is actually magic damage, so this guy can actually hit spirits without ethereal units without being influenced adversely. Very good. He's also got a tail and a mane. He's got a pierce attack from his tail, a 15 damage pierce attack, and he's got a 10 damage mane attack with an attack strength of 11, and it's pierce damage also. Pierce. So that's what that guy, that's his special abilities. And remember, with the 8, I ran up his protection to 22. Now we're going to get blesses, which are going to affect all my sacred guys when they get blessed. So your priest actually has to do a bless on your guys to get these bonuses. We're going to add bless effect. I want to add fortitude. Fortitude. What does fortitude do? This is a very powerful thing. It let me click on it. I actually got to right click on it. Oh, let me take it off for the time being so I can show what the bless effect. If I right click. Oh, doggone it. Okay, what am I thinking? It's down here at the bottom. Blessed units will be more resistant to physical. They take half damage from pierce, slash, and blunt. So those are basically the 3 types of damage that all weapons, 3 types of melee. It's either going to be pierce, slash, or blunt. So I am taking half damage from those. In addition, remember I ran up his protection to 22. So now I'm getting half damage from them against a super high protection. So I'm trying to make this guy into a tank, is what I want. I don't want him getting damaged because I don't want to get the doggone afflictions. So that is my goal. It's something that I want to focus on. This particular design is to absolutely minimize my chance of getting afflictions. Because, again, I don't have recuperation. So I'm doing that in 2 ways. Fortitude. I'm taking this back. This is a bless effect, though. It doesn't really affect the god, does it? But it does affect the blessed units. So, unfortunately, I don't think I'm going to get the fortitude effect on my god. I'm not 100% sure about that, though. We'll check that. I know that it's going to affect the blessed guys. And I'm also going to take Stygian flesh. They become more resistant to non-magical. So all my blessed guys now have a 10 protection, base protection against non-magic weapons. I wanted to point that out against my whatchamacallit, for God's sake. Well, make a note of that. Stygian flesh protection 10. I'm going to take fortitude. And I got a little bit more. I got 1 left over for mountain survival. Okay, so my blessed units they can move through mountains without penalty. Okay. So, what I wanted to point out, well, I can't do it from this screen. The one sacred, God dog it, darn it, the sacred centaur, the white centaur, only had a protection of 3. That's why I wanted to take that Stygian flesh. He now has a protection of 10, and he's actually a melee unit. 3 is incredibly poor for a. I don't want my main combat unit to have a protection of 3. He will go down really quick on my white centaur. So now he's got a protection of 10, which is much better and he's going to be for pierce slash. So all the damage, the regular damage is now going to be halved. They're now just flat out halved due to fortitude. So that makes my white centaurs and all my other guys that are blessed much, much more powerful with this bless and thing. So that's what we're going to do. That is my god. And so that's what I pretty much covered everything. So we're going to click OK. So this is what I'm setting. This is my set in motion. My scales, my god design, my bless effect, and I set him up as dormant, so I'm not going to see him for a year, but that's fine. 12-ish turns into the game. That's really kind of early in the game. I can live with that. I'm actually going to get him, like I said, in a year, which is still in the early phase of the game, and I'll be able to use him to rush some provinces. I'm going to talk more of my strategy when I use him. So that's what we're going to do. We'll go to the next screen, which is OK. So we're going to name our god. Of course, I'm going to name him my username. Corporal Kindel is my username. So, okay, all praise Corporal Kindel. Okay, so this is the next screen, which is a lot of these things are going to be set to my personal preferences. Number of starting provinces. Everybody starts with 1. Strength of independence. I am running up to 9. I like strong independence. So all those indie nations that are on the grant or that start the game, they are going to be starting at maximum possible strength. So it's going to make it tougher for everybody to expand. And this is not just, somebody commented that this will affect the AIs more, but with their rush gods are more likely to die. Well, it's going to affect everyone. It's going to affect the human guy too. It's going to have the net effect of not getting as many indie provinces as early as you would normally. And that's what I like. I want to have a little bit more time to build up. And again, it affects everybody. I see that as affecting everybody equally, in my opinion. You'd have to do more than to prove that this is really hurting the AI more than the human. I'm just going to need more than just that, because this is something that's affecting everybody equally. Okay, these are multiples that you can change how many resources are in the map and everything. I'm going to keep it all at defaults of 100%. Random events are rare. I like that. Story events, I'm just going to enable that. This adds a little bit more color, but it's not going to affect the game in any kind of way. Score graphs, I'm going to enable score graphs. I just want to have an idea of who is in the front runner, etc. occasionally, and I want to compare how I'm doing during the game, whether my research versus other research. I kind of like to be able to see those statistics during the game. I mean, somebody might say that really is not giving you information that you wouldn't normally have. I mean, fine. But in reality, it's really not going to affect the game at all. It's not going to affect the strength of the AIs in any way. Hall of Fame, I'm going to put that at 15. So you get guys that get the top 15 guys in the game, and they get special abilities. The last game I actually had, even though I lost, I had most of those special guys in that due to the nature of my strategy. I don't expect that to happen in this game, although I do expect a few of them. Global enchantment slots, keep it at 5. Limited unique art. Okay, I am going to take this off. I'm going to put no rate limit. Unique, I mean, this is something that really has no effect on the game, in my opinion, at all. Unique items, unique artifacts are those that are in level 8 construction. They're wonders of the world. For those of you that have played Civ with Sid Meier's, they have like wonders of the world. Well, this game kind of has a version of that. They got unique magic items that can only be built once in the world, and they're in construction level 8. They also have some global spells that can only be cast once in the game, and give the benefit to the guy casting them. Those global spells, they can be dispelled, and you could it's possible to dispel them and have somebody else cast them. So the point is, those spells can only be cast once in the game. They can only be active in the game at one time. So it can get dispelled, somebody else can cast it. Or you can kill the guy that casts it if you can find them, which is really, I think that I've actually killed in some game in the past, but it's something that you just really can't find the guy, put it that way. Human AI, my level is normal, everyone else is impossible. Standard research, no. I will always going to make this very difficult. Personal preference, simply the personal preference on my part. I don't like being at maxed out research just early in the game, which is really what usually happens. I like to be able to get research throughout the whole, especially as I play longer games on larger maps versus more opponents. I want that research to be really more going across the game. To give you some idea, the first level research normally under normal, if you set this to normal, it could normally cost 50. Very difficult, it costs 200. So that's going to quadruple the cost of research for everybody. It's a global setting, it affects everybody. It's going to affect the AI as well as me, and that's fine. That's how I like playing. I always ramp this up to, and every 4X game I play, it's just how I like to play. Others of you can send them easy if you want, and great, you'll be maxed out on the second year. I don't like that. I don't know what to say. I don't like that. I want it spread out. Throws of Ascension. Okay, I'm actually going to put up the last game. I'm going to actually ramp this. I'm going to add one more throne. Okay, so there's a total of 10 thrones in the game. I just added one more and made it just a flat out 10. 8 of them are 1 point, and 2 of them are 2 points. So there's a total of 12 points worth of thrones. You got to get 7 to win. So that means I got to get like 7 level 1, or say 5 level 1 and 1 level 2, or both level 2s and 3 level 1s, something like that, in order to win. You can't select all of these. Conquer. You could change. You could win by Dominion, Provinces, Research, Conquer all. I'm just going to set it at Thrones of. I kind of like that, actually. If there was one for select all, I would actually do that. I have no idea what the Cataclysm is. After a certain number of turns of Worldwide Cataclysm, if you enable this, if you want to limit the length of the game, no. I don't want any kind of limit on the game length. Eventually somebody else is going to win or lose. I'm not worried about that. So that's how we're going to set that. We'll click that to OK. So those are all my set. Oh, one other setting. I want to be able to rename, guys. If you want to rename your leaders in this game, make sure you set this. If you don't set that to is allowed, you won't be able to rename, guys. The thing about renaming, if you build a bunch of guys, the computer will just eventually they just start duplicating names. If you build 20 of those mages for a lot of them will be duplicate names. I really don't like that. Not to mention the fact that having names is kind of colorful. A lot of people don't use it. That's fine. I like to have unique names on guys, and I'm going to be using these with some of my guys. My home guy, team guys, I'll be using them. Scouts, I'm probably just going to call them something like A, B, C, D, because I'm going to be getting a lot of those. So in games generally, so I usually just rename scout guys. Those harpies will just be A, B, C, D, E. I'll run through the alphabet. Last game, I actually got up to quad A. I built more on my scouts, but I was using them in a different way. I was using them as warriors and not really because I was trying a new strategy with Niflheim, a warrior scout strategy. And in that particular game, it didn't work because in the sense that I lost the game, but those warrior scouts killed so many freaking units. I had most of the slots on the Hall of Fame were taken out by my warrior. So in a way that it worked, I think that's a viable strategy for Niflheim, but it has to be refined. I need to probably a little bit less of the bless in that particular strategy and less of a drain hit is what I was thinking about for Niflheim. But anyway, I'm rambling. That's an aside, just an aside. So that's how I'm going to set it up. So we're going to click OK. And we're generating the world.
Okay, so what do we got? Right, so what do we got? Okay, I should have mentioned that this starts setting up takes so long. It actually takes pretty long, especially since I got 15 nations. 15, well, there's actually 15 times 15 provinces is 225 plus 15 for the human player. Another 15 makes it 240. Okay, so we just got some an introductory stuff. This is just backstory information. Doesn't really, do much. So you should new players should read it just to have an idea what the backstory is. So let's see what map we got. Okay, so we have you can see our wrap around here, north, south. We go over here, we appear to our southern borders, and if we go down here, we'll appear on our northern flank, and then we got an east-west. So basically, there's this big ocean that's running along the southern freaking border. Very interesting. Big ocean. Okay, so we're looking at a provinces right here. As you see, look at the flags. These are independence. They're this white color. The national flags won't have this white. There'll be some kind of color, and they'll have some kind of symbol in them. In my case, it's flashing because I have it clicked. It flashes when you click on it. We're Pangea, so we got a boar's head or a steer or something, and it's green with wood symbols on the outside. So down here it shows your buildings that are in the province. Right now, this shows you the information about the province. This upper left screen. So this is Pangea. This is Scorpion Crags. We don't have any information there because we don't have any scouts, and our Dominion is not here. If you see this border, this shows where your Dominion is. See, I got one candle here, and I got one candle in my home province. So once the Dominion starts spreading, you can actually click on them, and it'll show you the information without having to have a scout. But as this place doesn't, we don't have a scout. It's not giving me any information other than the name and this number, which is just a random number for random events. It has no other use in the game. It's just for computer-generated random events, and it tells you the terrain type for movement purposes: mountain and waste. Mountain and waste. So if we go to our home province again, it shows you all the units that are in the province over to the left. The province information here, your national information. I got 400 gold in the treasury. Got an income of 378 and minus 25 due to these 4 units, or these units, I should say, because they're upkeep costs. Those were the negative. So you can get an idea of how much you're earning each turn's income minus expenses. And of course, as I mentioned in the other episode, the 4 ways to get income are through your capital, your fort administration ability, which I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail. Finding sites on the map that have give you income. There's a few of them, like the gold mine and the arena. I think gives 25 gold a turn. The gold mine, iron mine, something like 80 or 100. And another way is the drop near construction 8 item, which gives you 200 gold a turn. Actually, a very good item if you get to construction 8, but I wouldn't beeline construction 8 for that item. Although it is a very good item. 200 is huge. Look at that. It's almost half of my entire income for just that one item. And the other way is by cashing in. There's a spell that allows you to cash in gems for transmutation, alchemical transmutation, which is I don't like to cash in gems for gold, but sometimes you're forced to. So the main way is going to be through your administration income, taking provinces, specifically the ones that have a lot of farming provinces, which I mentioned, and number 1, enemy provinces. They enemy home provinces have the absolute most. Okay, so let's take a gander at our map. So we got a total of 10 of these ascension thrones of ascension spread around them, 8 level 1s and 2 level 2s. It looks like I have 3 of them that are relatively close, which is nice. 4, 5 at a little further removed. 4, 5, and 6 are further removed. There should be 4 more. 4 more in the map somewhere. Is there any in the ocean? Usually there's 1 or so in the ocean. Yep, here's 1 in the ocean right here.
one in the ocean right here. Okay, I'm not seeing any, so we're looking at 3 that are relatively close, I guess. This one, these 2, though, are kind of close. This one's somewhat close. It seems clear that I need to beeline this area because there's a lot of woods. We like woods as Pangea. Our labs and our temples are half price if we build them in woods. So normally a temple is 400, it's 200 if I build them in woods. Labs are 250 instead of 500 in woods. And of course, we got a lot of farming provinces over here. So this would be a really nice area to take. It would be huge if I could take that for my income, which I plan on doing. Okay, so what else do we got? We're going back to our starting units. I'm going to rename her. I'm going to call her A. I rename all my scouting troops A, B, C, D, and we got our we're starting with a guy, a minotaur. So I'm going to rename him. He's going to be Harry. Okay, all right. So okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit about this stuff over here, and then we're going to start the episode. Okay, should have said that would be the end of this episode, not the start of the episode. It'll be the end of this episode, and I'll the starting place of the next episode. Okay, so this episode's gotten really long, so let me just end up with this. So you click on your or any spot over here, your buildings section, as I mentioned before. This has the magic site, the fort, the temple, and the lab, which are these things over here. If you left click on them, they give you your info. Enables it has a special recruitment, and it produces magic gems. So if you capture another guy's capital, you won't get the special recruitment, but you will get the gems. Whatever, it's usually 6 of something, some combination of 6, most of them. Okay, and the temple will give you information. Every 5 will increase your dominion strength, so I'm going to keep that in mind. I'm going to be looking to do that. And also, it shows your current bless effects. That's good to have. Right now, it's showing the ones that are not incarnate, which is just my mountain and the basic +1 morale that you get for old bless. And then the lab. Well, there's nothing in the lab. You can't left click on the lab. The lab just tells you they have a lab, because really the magic section is up here. And then the fort gives you your info. And I'll tell a little bit more about how the administration works in the next episode, because I really need to get more province information in order to do that. So the next thing is your army, which we recruit units here, and they have the costs, like I mentioned. See, if you hover over this one down here at the bottom, it says Minotaur costs 78 and 1 commander points. And we got 2 commander points. Armies, of course, cost recruitment points. Recruitment points for armies. So you buy all the units that you can as you feel you need. And then there are mercenaries. You can hire mercenaries. It's really not a strategy that I really have used a whole lot. I think they're kind of overpriced. What I should say is you bid on them, and you may get them, you may not, depending on what you bid. And then your army set up. So this is how my armies are set up. And again, I'll address this in the next episode. You group them into groups, basically, under leaders. So the next section is your magic section. Magic items. Okay, I have no magic items. When you build magic items, they fill this box. You can think of it as a magic item bank. And there's only a certain amount of slots, so you got to transfer these to your leaders. You're not going to be hoarding them forever. Okay, magic resources. I'm getting 6 nature gems a turn right now due to my magic site. Global enchantment, there's 5 slots. There are none right now. So this game is kind of like, it has wonder of the world kind of things. If you all have ever played Civilization 6 with Sid Meier, they have wonders of the world, pyramids and the hanging gardens, great library. This has wonder of the world items and wonder of the world spells, kind of like the global enchantments are kind of like wonder of the world. They can only exist one time in the game. Of course, they can be dispelled, and somebody else can cast it, but at any one time there can only exist one of that spell. So if you're lucky enough to have one, then you got it. But keep in mind, they can be dispelled. They can be bumped if there's 5 items and 5 of those spells and somebody else casts a spell. It's possible to get bumped or not. It depends on how many gems you put into the spell. And they usually require huge amounts of gems. And there are also Wonder of the World items. Construction level 8 items can only they're unique. That's where that unique item construction things that I mentioned in the earlier in this episode. So they can only exist in the game at once if they're built. Of course, they can be destroyed and rebuilt, but they can only exist once in the world at a time, and they're construction level 8, like the Dropnir that I mentioned. And then the research. I got no research going. I divided that starting points among the categories. That was one of the options that you have instead of lumping them all into one. That's just how I like to do it. Other people's are different. Queue is empty, and I'm getting no research per month. 0 RP, that's research points, because I got no mages right now. And this other stuff is the turn-based stuff. The end turn is up here. Options, game settings, stuff like that. Saving the game and becoming AI controlled. I don't know why anybody would do that unless you're in a multiplayer game. Map filters. You can set up. If I was to put all these boxes on, it'll show you it'll put these things directly on the map, and that's okay. I mean, you can kind of see them from up here too. So don't normally use those. I mean, because you kind of already have that information on the map, but it kind of shows you the information in an easier, accessible way. Statistics. So this is the national overview. Shows all your guys and all your provinces. I only have 2 guys right now in one province, Pangea. Once you start searching for sites, it'll show the little gems for your search, which I'll talk about later when that happens. So it gives an overview of your nation. Score graphs. These are all the nations that are in the game, and it'll show their stats going along. So probably a lot of people don't like clicking on the screen. It doesn't really matter to me. It's not going to affect the AI, but it will give you information. I kind of like it because I can compare how I'm doing against other in these various categories, which I kind of like to know, especially on an impossible setting. Hall of Fame, remember there's 15 possible entries. There's none now. Nobody's made it to the Hall of Fame yet, so there's no entries. Pretenders of the World, those are all the pretenders. Here's my guy, Corporal Kindel, human. You can right-click on these and it'll show the units. So if you want to just have an idea of if you're fighting somebody, you want to know what their guys' strengths are, etc., you can click on this screen, right-click, and it'll give their stats, for example, and all these guys. So you kind of know what you're up against and what their sites are. So these guys get one air, 2 death, plus 1 water and 2 air. Wow. Okay, so they're getting a lot of air in this kingdom. Fomoria. Okay, so that's that, and then we got Thrones of Ascension. Those are all the thrones. So the Throne of Life and the Throne of Fire, those are the 2 level 2s, and then we get 8 level 1s. So there's a total of 12 points. Need 7 to win, and right now nobody has any. See, 7 are required to become the new god. Okay, so that's pretty much it. I should call this episode here. It's ran unbelievably long, but the first episode always runs long because I do a lot of analysis and everything like that, and analyzing the map, what I'm going to do, setting up the map, setting up the pretender. It takes a long time. I don't run through episodes. I like to play meticulously and smartly, just the way I play. So that's just the way I am. It's how I've learned to play these kind of games, over a lifetime. I don't like to make mistakes. So we're going to call it here. So this has been the end of episode 1 of Dominions 5 as Pangea on Impossible versus 15 AI. And it is Christmas this week. And I hope everybody has a great holiday weekend. And take it easy, and please stay tuned for episode 2, which will be coming up shortly. See you later. Bye.